It was supposed to be a fresh start. After years of struggling with her deteriorating health, Emily Carter had finally convinced her husband, Daniel, to move to a quieter, more accessible neighborhood. Pinewood Estates seemed perfect, a serene community with wide sidewalks, single-level homes, and a reputation for being friendly and inclusive. Or so they thought. The moving truck had barely left when the first knock came. Daniel was in the kitchen, unpacking boxes, when he heard 3 sharp raps on the door. He wiped his hands on his jeans and opened it to find a woman in her late 40s, her blonde hair perfectly coiffed, wearing a tailored navy suit. Her smile was wide, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi there. I'm Patricia Whitmore, president of the Pinewood Estates Homeowners Association. Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, thrusting out her hand. Daniel shook it, noticing the firm grip and the coldness in her tone. "Thanks. I'm Daniel Carter. We're still getting settled in," he said, gesturing to the half-unpacked living room behind him. Patricia peered past him, her eyes scanning the room with a critical gaze. "I can see that. Well, I won't take much of your time. I'm here to officially welcome you to our community and get you signed up for the HOA." She pulled a thick folder from her leather tote bag and held it out. Daniel hesitated. Our realtor never mentioned anything about an HOA. There was nothing in our closing documents. Patricia's smile tightened. "It's a recent rule change, voted on by the board last month. All homeowners in Pinewood Estates must join. It's mandatory." Daniel frowned. "Mandatory? What's the fee?" "Only $400 a month," Patricia said, her tone dismissive, as if the amount were trivial. Daniel's eyes widened. $400? That seems steep. What does it cover?" "Landscaping, community events, and property value protection," Patricia replied, her voice clipped. "Our neighborhood has the highest home values in the county because of our strict standards." Just then, the quiet whir of Emily's motorized wheelchair echoed down the hallway. "Daniel, who is it?" she asked, rolling up beside him. Emily's long auburn hair was tied back in a loose braid, her face pale but curious. Patricia's eyes flicked to Emily's wheelchair, then to her legs, covered by a light blanket despite the warm weather. "This is Patricia Whitmore from the HOA," Daniel explained. "She says we need to join." Emily smiled warmly. "Nice to meet you. We're excited to be here. The single-level layout and wide doorways are perfect for my needs." Patricia's gaze shifted to the small ramp they had installed over the single step at the front entrance. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "About that," she said slowly. "Any exterior modifications require pre-approval from the Architectural Committee. I don't see any approval forms for that ramp." "We just installed it yesterday," Daniel said, his voice steady. "We needed it for Emily to enter and exit safely." "Well, you'll need to submit formal paperwork. The committee meets monthly to review requests," Patricia said, pulling another form from her folder. "And speaking of modifications, I notice your mailbox isn't the standard model, and your house numbers aren't the approved font or size." Emily's smile faded. "We haven't had time to replace those yet." "I understand," Patricia said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "But we have standards here. That's why our community looks so pristine." Daniel felt a knot forming in his stomach. They were on a fixed income, with Emily's medical expenses already stretching their budget. Adding $400 a month would be a real burden. "Can I review these documents first?" Daniel asked, finally taking the folder. "Of course. You have 1 week to submit your membership application and fees," Patricia said, handing him her business card. "Call me if you have any questions." As she turned to leave, her gaze lingered on Emily's wheelchair ramp. "And do get that approval paperwork in for the ramp. We wouldn't want to issue a violation notice to new neighbors." After she left, Emily wheeled back into the living room. She seemed intense. "Yeah," Daniel agreed, flipping through the thick folder of HOA regulations. $400 a month is a lot. And look at these rules, specific plants we can grow, approved paint colors, even guidelines about when we can put out our trash cans. "Maybe it won't be so bad," Emily suggested, always the optimist. "Communities with standards can be nice." Daniel wasn't so sure. Something about Patricia's reaction to Emily's wheelchair bothered him. He had chosen this house specifically because it could be easily modified for Emily's needs as her multiple sclerosis progressed. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Patricia's veiled threats and the way she had looked at Emily's wheelchair. At 2 a.m., he got up and searched online for information about Pinewood Estates HOA. A local news article from 6 months ago caught his eye. Pinewood Estates residents challenged new HOA formation. He read that several homeowners had protested the creation of the HOA, claiming they never agreed to it when purchasing their homes. Further searching led him to a community forum where residents complained about sudden rule changes and aggressive enforcement. One post stood out. They targeted Mrs. Wilson, that sweet 80-year-old widow, until she couldn't take it anymore and sold her house for way under market value. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. Had they just moved into a neighborhood with a power-hungry HOA president? And how could an HOA suddenly become mandatory for existing homeowners? He dug deeper into county records online. The HOA had only been officially registered 9 months ago, which meant it had formed after many homes, including theirs, had been purchased. By morning, Daniel had a stack of printouts and a growing sense of unease. Over breakfast, he showed Emily what he had found. "This is concerning," she said, reviewing the documents. "They can't force existing homeowners to join an HOA that didn't exist when they bought their property." "That's what I thought," Daniel said. "I'm going to call our realtor and the title company today." Emily reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe there's a misunderstanding." Her gentle optimism was one of the many reasons Daniel loved her. But as he watched her struggle slightly to maneuver her wheelchair around their kitchen island, an island they planned to modify for better accessibility, he worried about what battles might lie ahead. A week later, Patricia Whitmore returned. Her navy suit was crisp. Her smile vanished when Daniel told her they wouldn't be joining the HOA. "I've consulted with our realtor and a property lawyer," Daniel explained calmly. "Since the HOA formed after we purchased our home, we can't be compelled to join." Patricia's face flushed. "I think you'll find that's incorrect. The HOA has jurisdiction over all properties in Pinewood Estates." "Not according to state law," Daniel replied, holding his ground. She stared at him for a long moment. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Carter. A big one." As she walked back to her luxury SUV parked in their driveway, Daniel noticed her taking pictures of their front yard with her phone. "What are you doing?" he called out. "Documenting the non-conforming ramp and unapproved landscaping," she replied without looking up. "The board will need to see this." As she drove away, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of their troubles. What would happen next? And was their dream home about to become a nightmare? The first notice arrived just 3 days after Daniel refused to join the HOA. A bright yellow paper tucked under their windshield wiper, claiming their car was improperly parked despite being in their own driveway. "This is silly," Emily said, examining the notice. "We're not breaking any rules." Daniel tossed it in the trash. "They're just trying to scare us." But the next morning, another notice appeared, this time taped to their front door. "Violation. Unapproved exterior modification. Wheelchair ramp." "James, look at this." Emily called from the kitchen 2 days later. She held up a letter that had come in the mail. "They're fining us $100 per day for the ramp." Daniel took the official-looking document, his blood beginning to boil. "They can't do this. We don't belong to their HOA." That afternoon, Daniel called a local attorney who specialized in property law. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Carter," she confirmed after hearing their situation. "They cannot force you to join an HOA that was created after you purchased your property, and they certainly cannot fine you for modifications needed for disability access." Armed with this information, Daniel wrote a formal letter to the HOA board, citing the relevant laws and demanding they cease harassment. He sent it certified mail so they couldn't claim they never received it. The next day, Daniel was working from home when he heard a truck outside. Looking out the window, he spotted 2 men in landscaping uniforms in their front yard. He rushed outside. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" he demanded. "HOA orders," the older man replied, barely glancing up from his clipboard. "Your lawn exceeds the height restriction by 1/4 inch." "I didn't authorize this," Daniel said firmly. "And we're not part of the HOA." The man shrugged. "Lady who hired us said you'd say that. Said to do it anyway and bill you." "Get off my property now," Daniel demanded, pulling out his phone to record. "This is trespassing." They left, but not before one muttered, "Good luck in this neighborhood, buddy." That evening, Emily's physical therapist, Angela, arrived for their weekly session. As they worked in the living room, a police cruiser pulled up outside. An officer knocked on their door. "We received a complaint about an illegal business being operated from this address," the officer said. "A business?" Daniel repeated in disbelief. "My wife is having physical therapy for her multiple sclerosis." The officer looked uncomfortable. "Someone reported regular clients coming and going." "That's absurd," Daniel said, inviting him in to see for himself. Angela confirmed this, showing her medical credentials. The officer apologized for the disturbance. "This is getting out of hand," Daniel told Emily after he left. "Someone is watching our house and calling in false reports." Emily's usual optimism was fading. "Maybe we should just join their HOA to make this stop." "No," Daniel said firmly. "That's exactly what they want. They're trying to bully us into compliance." The next morning, Daniel woke to the sound of someone pounding on their door. It was 6:15 a.m. A man in an official-looking uniform stood on their porch. "Noise complaint inspection," he announced. "What noise?" Daniel asked, still in his pajamas. "Reports of loud machinery running all night," the inspector explained. "Need to check your home for violations." "That's ridiculous," Daniel said. "The only machinery we have is my wife's medical equipment, which makes minimal noise." Emily appeared behind him in her wheelchair. "What's happening, Daniel?" The inspector's eyes narrowed at the sight of her chair. "Is that electric? Could be the source of the noise." "It's a standard motorized wheelchair," Daniel explained, growing angry. "And we were both asleep all night, so nothing was running." The inspector made a note on his clipboard. "I'll need to inspect the chair." "Absolutely not," Daniel said firmly. "You have no right to enter our home or inspect my wife's medical equipment. Please leave our property now." After he left, Daniel installed a security camera at their front door. He had a feeling they'd need evidence of the harassment. That night, they were watching TV when the power suddenly went out. Their entire house went dark. "Stay here," Daniel told Emily, grabbing a flashlight. "I'll check the breaker box." But the breakers were fine. Looking out the window, Daniel saw that every other house on the street still had power. Only theirs was dark. He called the power company's emergency line. "We'll send someone out," the representative promised. "But it's strange. Our system shows no outage at your address." 2 hours later, a utility worker arrived. "Someone tampered with your meter," he explained after inspecting the box on the side of their house. "Switched it off manually. This isn't something that happens by accident." As he restored their power, Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Someone had deliberately cut their electricity. The following day, they received 3 more violation notices: improper garbage bin placement, unapproved window coverings, and excessive medical equipment visible from the street. "This is harassment," Emily said, her voice breaking. "They're targeting us because of my disability." Daniel gathered all the notices and took photos. "We need to document everything." That afternoon, Daniel was mowing their lawn when Patricia Whitmore walked by with 2 other women. They stopped directly in front of their house. "Such a shame," Patricia said, loud enough for Daniel to hear. "This neighborhood used to have standards." "I heard they're running some kind of medical facility," one of her companions replied. "Should be illegal in a residential area." Daniel turned off the mower. "Excuse me, but we can hear you. If you have concerns, you should address them to me directly." The women looked startled. Patricia recovered quickly. "We're just concerned about property values. Your situation creates an eyesore." "My situation?" Daniel asked, stepping closer. "You mean my wife's disability? The wheelchair ramp? The medical equipment?" Patricia listed them off. "It's not what people expect in an upscale community." Daniel felt his face growing hot. "The Fair Housing Act and Americans with Disabilities Act protect our right to make reasonable modifications for my wife's condition. Laws can be interpreted many ways," Patricia replied with a cold smile. "And accidents happen to people who don't fit in." Before Daniel could respond, they walked away, laughing. That night, Daniel heard engines revving outside their house around midnight. Looking out the window, he saw 3 cars parked directly in front of their driveway, blocking them incompletely. He recognized Patricia's SUV, her husband Tom's sports car, and a third vehicle belonging to the HOA treasurer. What if Emily needed emergency medical care? We'd be trapped, Daniel thought, grabbing his phone to record and going outside. "You can't block our driveway like this," Daniel said, keeping his phone camera pointed at them. Tom Morgan stepped out of his car, smirking. Public street. We can park wherever we want. This is clearly intentional harassment, Daniel said. You're blocking access for a disabled person. Prove it. Patricia called from her SUV. We're just having a late-night chat. I'm calling the police, Daniel warned. Go ahead, Tom laughed. My brother-in-law is the shift captain tonight. They eventually drove away, still laughing, but their message was clear. They had power in this community, and the Carters didn't. The next morning, Daniel woke to the sound of car doors slamming. He rushed to the window and saw 3 black SUVs blocking their driveway. His heart pounded as he spotted Patricia marching up their path with 5 men in suits. One carried a toolbox, a locksmith. Emily, they're here, Daniel whispered urgently, helping his wife into her wheelchair. Emily's face showed no fear, only fierce determination. Start recording, she said, pressing the panic button hidden under her armrest. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by aggressive knocking. Daniel checked their hidden camera feed on his phone. All cameras were working. He took a deep breath and opened the door, keeping the security chain on. What do you want? Daniel asked, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Patricia's smile was shark-like. Emergency inspection. We've received reports of unauthorized modifications endangering the community. She thrust a paper toward the crack in the door. Daniel pretended to read it, buying time while their emergency signal reached the governor's team. This isn't legal, he said. You need proper notice for any inspection. Tom stepped forward. The HOA agreement gives us emergency access rights. Open this door now, or we'll consider it a violation of community guidelines. The locksmith shuffled nervously behind them. Ma'am, I'm not comfortable with this. You said you were the property owner locked out of your own house. Shut up and do your job, Patricia snapped. We have authority here. Daniel closed the door and reattached the chain, buying precious seconds. I'm calling the police, he called through the door. Go ahead, Patricia laughed. Chief Morgan is my brother-in-law, remember? Who do you think will respond? Emily wheeled up beside him. Let me handle this, she said, her lawyer voice emerging clear and authoritative, nothing like her usual gentle tone. When Daniel reopened the door, Emily positioned herself in view. Patricia Whitmore, you're currently committing attempted breaking and entering. Every word and action is being recorded. I advise you to step away from my property immediately. Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits. How dare you threaten me? Your little appointment won't save you. By the time your precious ceremony happens next week, you won't even live here anymore. So, you've been monitoring my professional activities? Emily asked innocently, expertly baiting her. Everyone knows, Patricia spat. You think your government connections scare us? We run this community, not some has-been with a pity appointment. Tom stepped forward, putting his foot in the door gap. Enough talking. We're coming in to inspect, and then you're going to sign these papers. He held up a stack of documents. Transfer of property. Fair market value. Take it, or things get worse. Are you threatening us? Daniel asked, his phone visibly recording now. Call it whatever you want, Tom growled. Nobody says no to the Pinewood Estates Oversight Committee. The locksmith stepped back. I didn't sign up for this. This is illegal. Shut up, Patricia turned on him. You'll do exactly what we pay you for. She grabbed his tools and shoved them into his hands, pushing him toward their door. Open it now, or your business with the city ends tomorrow. The locksmith looked trapped, sweat beading on his forehead, hands shaking. He moved toward their lock. Daniel braced himself against the door as Tom pushed harder. The security chain strained against the frame. Emily wheeled back slightly, pressing another hidden button. From their bedroom, a piercing alarm sounded. The locksmith jumped back, but Patricia just smiled. Amateur theatrics won't save you, she said coldly. Tom, break it down. Tom stepped back, preparing to ram the door with his shoulder. Daniel moved away, following their planned protocol, giving them enough rope to hang themselves. The door burst open, the chain snapping. Tom stumbled in, followed immediately by Patricia and 2 board members. The locksmith remained outside, looking horrified. That's breaking and entering, Emily said calmly, her phone recording everything. Would you like to add assault to your charges? Save your legal talk, Patricia sneered, snatching papers from her briefcase. Sign these now, or next time it won't be just your wheelchair we chain up. In the distance, sirens wailed. Patricia smiled triumphantly. Right on time. My brother-in-law's officers will explain how things work around here. But as the sirens grew louder, her smile faltered. Too many sirens, coming from multiple directions. Something's wrong, Tom muttered, moving to the window. Blue and red lights flashed as not one, but 6 police cruisers screeched to a halt outside their house. Behind them, an unmarked black SUV pulled up. What the hell? Patricia whispered, her confidence cracking. Through their open door, they watched uniformed state troopers, not local police, approach with weapons drawn. Police. Everyone on the ground. A voice commanded through a megaphone. Tom ran for the back door, but froze when 2 more officers appeared in their kitchen. Within seconds, their living room was filled with law enforcement. Patricia and her associates were forced to the ground and handcuffed. What is the meaning of this? Patricia shrieked. Do you know who my brother-in-law is? Yes, Mrs. Whitmore, we're quite familiar with Chief Morgan, a stern-faced woman in a suit said, entering their home. He's currently being questioned about his own involvement in this matter. The woman showed her badge. State Attorney General's office. We've been investigating your HOA activities for months. Patricia's face contorted with rage. This is ridiculous. We have rights. Like the ones you respected for disabled homeowners? Emily asked quietly. The final blow came when another vehicle pulled up. Governor Elizabeth Reynolds herself stepped out, flanked by security. Patricia's jaw dropped as the governor walked straight to Emily and clasped her hand warmly. Perfect timing, as always, Beth, Emily said with a smile. Wish I could have gotten here sooner. The governor replied before turning to Patricia, who was still on the floor in handcuffs. Patricia Whitmore, she said, her voice icy. I believe we need to talk about your systematic harassment campaign against vulnerable homeowners, starting with my former law school roommate and dear friend. You're what? Patricia stammered, looking frantically between Emily and the governor. Before her MS diagnosis, Emily was the state's top housing rights attorney, Governor Reynolds explained. We've worked together for years. And as for your operation here, we've been building a case against you and your associates for months. As officers led Patricia and her team away, Daniel caught her final venomous glare at Emily. But something in her eyes had changed. For the first time since they'd met her, he saw fear. The governor turned to Emily. Ready to make housing history again, counselor? Emily looked up at her old friend, tears in her eyes. More ready than you know. Daniel stood in their doorway, watching the police cars drive away, wondering how many other victims of Patricia's scheme were about to get justice. And more importantly, would this be enough to finally end the reign of corrupt HOAs that preyed on the vulnerable throughout their state? Cameras flashed as Patricia was led away in handcuffs, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. You'll regret this, she screamed at Emily. Do you know who my husband is? Governor Reynolds stepped between them. I know exactly who he is, Mrs. Whitmore. And he's next. Daniel watched in amazement as news vans lined their street, reporters thrusting microphones toward them, hungry for details about the HOA that had chained a disabled woman to her porch. The story spread like wildfire. Emily, they want a statement, Daniel whispered, squeezing her hand. His brave wife wheeled forward, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. Today isn't just about what happened to me. 17 families were bullied by these people because of age or disability. That stops now. The investigation moved fast. FBI agents found offshore accounts holding over $2 million in stolen HOA fees. They discovered Patricia's brother had bought 8 properties from elderly residents who sold after strange accidents damaged their homes. 3 days later, Tom Whitmore was escorted from the police station, his badge and gun taken away. His fellow officers wouldn't look him in the eye as he passed. My uncle is a lawyer, whispered their neighbor Ellie, who had been too afraid to help them before. He says they could face up to 15 years in prison. Their phone rang constantly with calls from other victims. An elderly man who found dead animals in his yard after refusing to sell, a deaf couple whose fire alarms were tampered with, a veteran with PTSD who found threatening notes calling him damaged goods. We should help them all, Emily said one night, determination burning in her eyes. 1 month later, they sat in Governor Reynolds' office as she signed Executive Order 438, freezing all HOA fees statewide pending investigation. It's a start, she told Emily. But we need stronger laws. Emily nodded. I want to help write them. The governor smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Daniel never expected his quiet wife to become the face of a movement. But there she was, on television, rolling through the halls of the state capitol, meeting with lawmakers. Her MS sometimes left her exhausted, but nothing stopped her fierce drive for justice. For months, Patricia and 5 HOA board members pleaded guilty to avoid trial. The judge showed no mercy. You preyed on those you saw as weak, he told them. 8 years minimum. No parole. Did you see Patricia's face? Emily asked Daniel later. She still couldn't believe she had the power to fight back. The new law was bold. No HOA could form without unanimous consent from all homeowners. Existing HOAs faced strict oversight, with criminal penalties for discrimination against disabled or elderly residents. They're calling it the Emily Carter Act, the governor told them at the signing ceremony. Rain fell gently as they returned home that evening. Their neighborhood looked different now. Rainbow flags and disability pride symbols appeared in windows. People waved and smiled as they passed. A moving truck stood across the street. A young couple helped their daughter, maybe 8 years old, maneuver her wheelchair down a ramp. Welcome to Pinewood Estates, Emily called, rolling toward them. The girl's face lit up, seeing another wheelchair user. You live here too? I do, Emily smiled. And you're going to love it here. Later that night, Daniel found Emily looking at old pictures from before her diagnosis. Do you ever wish things had been different? He asked softly. She closed the album. I wish I hadn't been chained to our porch. But look what came from it. She paused. Sometimes, your biggest challenge reveals your greatest strength. A letter arrived the next morning from the state bar. They wanted Emily to lead a new committee on disability rights law. What do you think? She asked, eyes sparkling with excitement. Daniel kissed her forehead. I think Patricia Whitmore made the biggest mistake of her life when she decided to mess with my wife. Who would have thought that their quiet life would transform into a battle that would protect thousands of vulnerable homeowners across the state? Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story on Store of Good Stories. If this story touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to hit like and share the video to spread this positive message to more people. And if this is your first time here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of the meaningful stories we share every week. Your support is the biggest motivation for Store of Good Stories to keep bringing heartfelt and valuable stories to you. See you in the next video.